Chillingly, 9,000 potential rape gang cases have been reopened in London. I'm not going to let this go, Mayor Sadiq Khan, because I think this is a disgusting cover-up of the rape of children in London.
I can answer.
I've just spelt it out. Are you not listening? It's the sort of gangs that groom young girls at a young age for...
Breaking. The Met Police has just reopened over 9,000 child grooming gang cases. A crime earthquake at the heart of Britain. And as public outrage explodes, a mayor has just threatened to end 300 years of royal authority, prompting King Charles to strike back using a constitutional power unseen since 1725. In 48 hours, one of them will be politically destroyed. This isn't just a clash of egos. It's a nation in moral collapse. A battle for Britain's soul between democracy, chaos, and the crown. 5 days ago, London Mayor Sadiq Khan unveiled the so-called London Citizenship Charter, forcing over 120,000 businesses to sign diversity pledges or face fines of £50,000 each. But he said announcement came hours after a leaked letter from Met Commissioner Sir Mark Rowley admitted catastrophic failures with 9,000 child exploitation cases left buried for 15 years. 4 years, Khan and the Met insisted London had no grooming gangs. None at all. That illusion is dead. A survivor called Khan's denials disgusting, warning they could drive victims to suicide. Yet, as Britain demanded answers, Khan pressed on, declaring, London will lead Britain into the 21st century, whether the establishment likes it or not. The disconnect between his words and the country's grief could not have been greater. King Charles didn't stay silent. Within hours, Palace aides confirmed he had invoked a rare crown intervention, a constitutional power untouched since 1725, authorizing the monarch to question whether Khan had overstepped his authority. Westminster froze. Newspapers called it a royal strike on moral decay. Meanwhile, headlines tied Khan's administration to the Met's 9,000K scandal, accusing City Hall of criminals. Shadow Home Secretary Chris Phelps branded Khan's denials shameful, a betrayal of the victims. I can answer. Then Buckingham Palace made the letter public. 3 centuries of quiet monarchy broken in a single night. The response from City Hall was explosive. At 4:00 p.m., Sadiq Khan stepped before the cameras, branding the monarch's move an attack on democracy itself. His words were sharp, rehearsed, confident. Khan declared, "This is not 1825, they say. This is 2025. Inside the hall, Khan spoke of democracy, safety, and freedom. Outside, London burned. The grooming scandal had ripped the city apart. 9,000 victims, 9,000 unanswered cries. A man preaching liberty while London buried its shame. His aide signaled that the crowd was turning restless. He ignored them. Then came the line that sealed his fate. How many palaces does one family need? While Londoners can't afford rent. Within minutes, that single sentence detonated across Britain. By dawn, outrage erupted across the nation. Front pages screamed. One headline, War on the Crown. But buried beneath it was the real story. Moral collapse in the capital. Whistleblower Maggie Oliver, who exposed Rotherham, told GB News, "This is what denial looks like, and protect the narrative, not the children." Her words hit harder than any speech. Television replayed the faces of victims. Commentators called it Rotherham Reborn. This time in the capital, the numbers told the rest. Khan's approval collapsed 18 points in 72 hours, down to 19% among voters over 50. Even within Labour, whispers began. He's finished. For millions of Britons, this was no longer about one mayor or one city. It was a reckoning between truth and denial, power and justice, Britain and itself. The fallout was instant. By morning, the markets trembled. The pound fell 0.3%, erasing £1.2 billion from London's financial sector in a single day. Protests ignited from Trafalgar Square to Tower Bridge. Banners reading 9,000 forgotten never again. But the breaking point came at midnight on X. Khan posted, "The Crown lectures me on tradition while protecting inherited privilege. I answer to Londoners, not palaces." 17 minutes later, it vanished. But screenshots were everywhere in every newspaper, every phone, every home. The message wasn't political anymore. It was desperate. Political strategists called it the tweet that ended a career. Within hours, Karma released a cold statement. The views expressed by the Mayor of London do not represent the Labour Party. The silence from Number 10 was louder than any speech. At dawn, thousands gathered again, chanting in the rain, "Who failed them?" It wasn't just a slogan. It was a verdict. By nightfall, City Hall's windows were dark. And across Britain, one truth settled like dust. The mayor, who spoke of justice, had become the symbol of everything it had lost. By Friday, the crisis entered Parliament, an emergency debate titled, "The Erosion of Public Trust in London's Institutions" opened under packed galleries. Then came the leak. Operation Beaconport, a Home Office review led by the National Crime Agency, had already flagged 1,200 mishandled grooming cases within the Mets. Many were signed off during I Can Answer. A memo from one senior officer read, "We were told to avoid demographic controversy." Silence was safer. Across Westminster, MPs looked stunned. And Kem Badno, rising to speak, delivered the line that split the chamber while Sadiq Khan attacked the king. London's children were abandoned. The Commons fell silent by sunset. Polling shifted again. Conservatives 42%, Labour 31%, the first Tory lead in Greater London since 2016. Even left-leaning papers began to turn, calling Kchen politically radioactive. Inside City Hall, aides described him as pale, sleepless, pacing. One advisor whispered, "He knows it's over." Oh, but he can't stop talking. The following morning, Parliament confirmed it. A vote of no confidence was scheduled for Monday. For Khan, it would be Judgment Day. Saturday dawned under grey skies and London exploded. Over 70,000 protesters filled the streets, stretching from Tower Bridge to Westminster, holding photos of children the system forgot. Their chant was relentless. 9,000 names are one truth. Police lined the streets silent. Veterans stood shoulder to shoulder with survivors, priests, mothers, nurses. Outside Parliament, a single sign read, "We fought for this country as not its ages." From the palace balcony, aides said King Charles watched quietly as the chants reached the gates. Hours later, Buckingham Palace released a rare 9-word statement. "The protection of the innocent transcends all politics." The sentence was short, but it split the nation. Inside City Hall, phones rang unanswered. Deputy Mayor Sophie Linden reportedly threatened to resign, calling the crisis irreversible. Khan refused to appear in public that night. City Hall went dark, but across London, candles burned in windows, flickering for children whose names were never read aloud. A city once proud of its diversity now stood united in grief. By Sunday, the reckoning began. News broke that the Home Office had opened a formal inquiry into City Hall's handling of child exploitation cases, but the first in British history. At the same time, whispers spread that senior Labour figures had urged Khan to resign for the sake of the party. He refused. Financial markets dipped again. The pound hit a 10-month low. Editorials across the spectrum, The Times, Telegraph, Guardian carried the same brutal line. London trusted him and he betrayed that trust. In Westminster, MPs debated what historians would soon call the moral collapse of a metropolis. Then came the image that broke the internet. A single white rose at the gates of City Hall. Beneath it, a handwritten note, 9,000 voices, never silenced. The nation fell quiet for Khen. There was no recovery, no apology left to give. He had outlasted protests, scandals, and political storms. But not this. When a leader loses the moral right to speak, even power stops listening. And by nightfall, London itself seemed to hold its breath. 48 hours later, the vote was cast. The motion of no confidence passed. Overwhelming. Sadiq Khan, once hailed as London's most powerful mayor, was finished. King Charles remained silent, but his silence spoke louder than any decree. Across Britain, bells tolled for 9,000 forgotten souls, and for a city that finally faced its truth. This was not just the fall of one man. It was the end of an illusion that progress can exist without accountability. And as history turned its page, Britain rediscovered something rare: conscience. Because when truth returns, no crown, no mayor, no party can contain it. If you believe Britain deserves leaders who answer to the people, not the powerful, subscribe, stay with Brit News, and share this story. The silence has ended. Now justice must begin.